De Bruyne drifting away from N'Golo Conte. Kevin De Bruyne. Oh, wow, that's brilliant. That is magnificent. Come on, Stolly boy. Yes, double 12. That is the most amazing left dance you will ever see in your life.
Person to choose from with two. He hits it, he's got it. He's got the field goal. He's got the premiership.
G'day everyone and welcome back to the Sports Are Rough podcast. I am Matt Ruff and today we have a very special guest on. I think carries himself with a lot of respect, humbleness, and is basically the walking example of those two things exactly. He is also a Pittsburgh Pirate outfielder, Mr. Solomon Maguire. Mate, how are we going?
Appreciate you having me on here. That's quite an introduction, honestly. I appreciate it.
No, well, it's true. Oh, God. It would have been 7 years ago now when I sort of first was getting started. We had a Next Gen camp with the Next Gen boys, and it was just one of those holiday camps, and you were one of the coaches that were there.
Sure.
And how old were you in 2017? You would have been what?
2017. I'm 21 now, 2024.
7 years ago, so what? 14?
Yeah, 13, 14, around there. I was young.
So, and already, like, you know, you're only, 2 years older than me per se, but in my eyes, you were always that older figure, someone that I had and still do look up to quite a lot, because you're like, you know, what you've achieved, and we'll get into it in a minute, what you've achieved in such a small amount of time, it's pretty impressive, but it's something that, you know, I don't think people, and I think it's now getting into the point where people in Australia are starting to get recognised for baseball, with yourself, Travis Bazzana, of course, and players of the like.
No, it's a cool journey to go on. I think, especially in the sport of baseball, we have been given, especially my age group, so many opportunities, whether that's to be in front of younger kids and start coaching them at a young age, such as yourself, where we didn't even know anything much about the game. We're still learning a lot, as well as being on world stages, being against other top players around the world. It really does have a lot to offer, and it can get to your head. And it happens plenty of times where it's people change with the accolades that they start to attain and things like that. I think I was so fortunate to grow up in a family where that wasn't going to affect me. Being around the boys that I was with as well, and the guys that I still consistently in the off seasons that I'll train with, day in, day out, whether it's Bazzana, whether it's Jimmy Natta, Clayton Campbell, we've made this tight-knit of a friendship, and we've pushed each other so much where it's that things like that doesn't just go loose and we're like, oh yeah, we'll let it slide. We kind of keep each other accountable, and so passing that on, you know, whether it's coaching young kids and making sure they're understanding it all as well, I think we tried really hard to make sure that we weren't, in the eyes of all the people around us and the young kids, as these superstars, but more of as mentor and friends, yeah.
I can definitely say from my experiences with you, whether that was on a generic Saturday or whatever, you do, no matter what you've just represented the country with or state or whatever, you've always just kept a very level head. Like you might think in the back of your mind, oh yeah, you know, but you display a very high level of humbleness, knowing what you are achieving. And I think that's something a lot of people can learn, because I've seen firsthand, whether it's in baseball or other sports, people start getting accolades, like you said, and it gets too big for their head and they think they're the best thing since sliced bread. And, you know, I think the thing with what I experienced in baseball anyway, like getting, like trying out for teams and whatever, is I don't know so much about other sports, but I know in baseball in particular, coaches and selectors, their main focus is the personality of the player,
Yep.
and then they worry about
Yep.
the skills afterwards.
Yep.
Because I've seen quite a few times that, you know, the supposed best player trying out
Yep.
might not get picked because he's absolute shithead off the field.
Yep.
But do you think that is also a factor, knowing that people are looking at your personality and off-field things to a T, really, because some people might not pick you or whatever because of if anything was to happen off-field. Do you think that sort of influences how you behave off-field as well?
Yeah, it's carried through from a young age, and I would say most importantly, it was so important at a young age for things like that. Being able to listen, coachability, showing your personality as a good person, and it's not just like in front of the scouts and things like that. It's genuine, like who you are is genuinely who you're showing as well. That's got such a big factor for so many players. And don't get me wrong, there are, especially now being in Pro Bowl, so many players that are arrogant, that are super cocky, and a lot of people do perceive it that way. Everyone's got a level of respect, though, within themselves. And so I do see that as a big side of confidence. And I do believe if you are to make it in baseball, you need to have a lot of confidence. You need to walk around the field knowing I'm the best player on every single field. In saying that, though, I think there is a lot to learn, to be humble, to be able to connect with other people and really show your interest in learning and things like that, which I think helped me especially. And with my career and where I see it going, that it would be next to impossible to kind of leave that away from me. That's who I am now. And so, yeah, I think I appreciate you saying that so much, and I appreciate people recognizing that. But yeah, that's just who I've learnt to be and who I want to continue to be and show other people as well.
A lot of people, even in the kids' game, a lot of people are two-faced.
Yep.
Like they might wish you luck, but then they actually don't want you to do it as, like, if they're parents, for example, they want you to win, but they don't want you to be better than their kid or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Whereas your dad was just every single time so genuine, just so straight to it. And I think for me as well, it was always nice knowing that he was someone to rely on for that sort of that positivity when whether I didn't think I was good enough for a team that I got picked in or club level or whatever.
Sure.
I do want to sort of go into your family and your background and your sort of where it started. So was your dad involved with baseball? Like, was he the president of the club prior to you starting, or no?
He had no relevance in baseball. He was loved his soccer through his whole life. Even when I started, he got me to play soccer as well. There was not a single bit of bat and ball sports in my family. You could say I was just lucky enough that I fell in love with being athletic. My dad helped me a lot. My dad was always there ready to go whenever I needed someone to train with. It wasn't like, oh, I got work and I got this and things like that. I was very fortunate that my parents were able to prioritize my sister and I's life. My sister, she was athletic when she was a young kid, and right now we're just super tight. We're very, very close to each other. And so we have a good bond in our family. And that, I think, obviously started and branched off from our parents. My mum is the most loving person in this world. Just so perfect. She would do anything that she could for us. And then my dad, on the same side of it, is the exact same way. And it was just this perfect combination. And it was never that my dad was trying to push me. He wasn't after games. I wasn't getting in the car and he was going, "Hey, why'd you strike out? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that?" It got to a point where we would just talk about things. He would laugh about if I got out or if I made an error. We would just laugh about it. Because at the end of the day, they didn't care where I was going in life. It was more of a stay happy, have fun, do whatever you want to do, and they will support me along the way. So no, there was no there was no connection to baseball. With me, I got introduced to it by a friend in kindergarten. And I just remember running around the bases on a T-ball field one day and just kept getting up to play it every day. Chose it over soccer every day I could. Yeah.
It's interesting that, you know, and it was a bit like me as well. Like, I had never even thought of baseball.
Sure.
It was not even a
Yeah.
thing on my...
I mean, yeah, we're in Australia. It's just not the thing.
And that's exactly what I thought before I started.
Yeah.
But then as soon as I started and I actually saw, you know, fields are more sort of tucked away, and
Yeah.
you know, if you don't know, if you don't know where they are, you'll most likely miss them,
Yep.
right? Especially Knightsfield.
Exactly right. Yeah.
If you don't know where it is, you've got no chance.
You got
of
no
knowing.
chance.
I remember I tried out the first time. I literally went to Fred Catterson. I didn't go to Knightsfield, and they needed me to try out at Knightsfield. I'm like, where is this
Where is
fucking
this thing?
field?
It's right at the back, right next to the cemetery. It's just no one sees it.
But I was like, the baseball community is obviously smaller than your soccers and your tennises and your crickets and all that sort of shit. But within, like, the baseball community in itself is actually quite big. I didn't think it was as big as it was.
Yep.
I thought it was like a tiny fraction of what I ended up witnessing as what it is.
Yep.
And that was just in the Hills District, let alone, you know, Cronulla, Manly, up in the Central Coast, all that sort of stuff. So I was like, it was such a shock to me that so many people were doing it, because it never even crossed my mind as a sport that I would want to play.
It's big. It's everywhere. And I think it takes you everywhere. Even when you got, you know, those little competitions for reps and things like that, all of a sudden you're traveling across the whole country and traveling to all parts of Sydney and New South Wales and wherever it might take you. And it's just funny. I remember, like, all my friends back in, like, primary school being good at their sports, but they were like, dude, you are always everywhere. Because it's just like, I see baseball. It was a growing sport back then. It's growing even more so now with, I would say, the likes of Bazana doing what he just did. The sport over here is just growing day to day. And I think it's great, but I don't think people understand in this country the presence the sport already had. There is a lot of people in the sport. It does get overlooked because we don't have, like, the actual Australian Baseball League isn't as advertised and things like that.
It's not televised to
Correct, exactly right.
mainstream media and stuff as well. So it's a lot harder to reach out to people when you're not getting that exposure.
Exactly right. Where it's other people can just turn on the TV and have other sports there. So that, in that sense, there might be other sports ahead of us. I don't think there's anything to say we can't do it soon, though.
The youngers are getting better earlier on in their careers.
Yep.
And to me, that's really exciting. Because, you know, any exposure to baseball in Australia is going to be good exposure.
Yep.
And whether that's the likes of yourself going over there, Clayton Campbell, Travis Bazana, they're the main stories that people will attract to.
Yep.
And then, like you said, all the kids will hopefully get inspiration from that and think, oh God, we can do this. And then they hope to follow in your guys' footsteps and do the same sort of thing as you. I think, and it's always good to have a role model in a sport that you do that you're like, that you can see where they came from.
Yep.
It's not too much different to them.
Yep.
Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like the Americans where they are just born into it and it's just, that is it.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think that's the biggest thing with Australian baseball now. Like, we've got the talent, we've got everything else. We just need the exposure now.
Yep. And
stories like yourself and Bazana's, that's only going to attract more attention to it, which means it'll hopefully grow. And it's just a never-ending cycle.
Yep.
Stories will keep coming up and it just keeps going like that. And hopefully it turns into a much bigger sport than it already is, even though it is a much... it's definitely a bigger sport than it was when I started.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm sure it's 10 times bigger than what it was when you started as well.
Yeah, I think we're in a good path for it. You look at guys, it's getting more international by the day. You look at the World Cups that we've had for like the WBSA over the past few years. The attraction to those is unbelievable. You get guys from every country now, like Otani, just bringing everyone from Japan in. Obviously got all the guys in America, and now we're getting all these other countries, Netherlands, Australia. I mean, we've always been known for good at baseball, but now that we're getting our names as well up in there, it's everyone. And I think with all the media stuff happening these days, it's pretty hard to not advertise new things and to promote new things. And so I think baseball's on a good path for that. Yeah, for sure.
I did sort of want to go into, we've sort of talked about baseball as a whole, but we haven't actually really talked about your sort of pedigree as of right now, right? So for people who sort of haven't heard about Solo's journey yet, so he's represented Australia in 4 World Cups, am I right?
Let me count.
Under 12s in Taiwan.
15s, 18s, 23, 20.
As of right now.
5 now. I've done 23s twice.
Right, okay.
But besides that, for the age groups, yeah, I've done all 4, yeah.
Now, first of all, that in itself is extremely impressive, right? Then you weren't even 10 years old. You've gone to Osaka, Japan for an international trip.
Yep.
And then this past World Cup, you got 2 seriously impressive awards in the most RBIs and the most home runs.
Sure, yep.
And then not only that, but at 16 you signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates on a professional contract. You're then playing with the Sydney Blue Sox in the off-season when you're out here. If that's not a pretty impressive pedigree by 21, I don't know what is. Like
Obviously, I don't want to call it quits today, but if I was to look back on what I've done so far, yeah, it's been pretty special. It's been a pretty fun journey. Even I'm like from the first one under 12s, and it's to me, playing at an under 12 World Cup I don't even know why it's a thing. Kids are just trying to have fun out there, and you're getting guys that are just trying to win World Cups and things like that. It's great, but I didn't even know you knew about going to Japan at 10 years old.
The reason why I know is because I did the trip a couple of years later.
Sure.
And prior to me going, I had looked at their specific Facebook page, and your face was plastered everywhere.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah. You had photos everywhere.
Okay, right.
Whether that was released later on due to the fact that your name is now in lights, or whether that was just genuinely how many photos they took of you on the spot, I don't know. But I remember it was probably a month or 2 before I went over, and I just had a look to see sort of what they got up to over there, and your face was plastered all over it. I was like, okay, well, there you go.
I cried every day there. Yep, no parents, no nothing, first time, and we've gone over this so many times, my parents and I, just discussing how it's so funny at 9 years old I did go over to another country just to play baseball, and they were never ever planning on coming to support me. And it's funny, obviously at 9 years old I had the dream and aspirations to become a big league player, but they had already heard of when you sign, you do go over to America by yourself. So the whole plan the whole time from my parents was, we're not going to go over there. He's got to get used to it. We're going to send him there on his own. And I called them and things like that. And I ended up, maybe why you saw my face, I was 9, the youngest on the team by far, and played out of my shoes. I just played so ridiculous. And so it was a good learning curve. And so starting there and then going to all these other World Cups and things like that, yeah, they were great, 12s, 15s and things like that. But then the big one was really the under 18s, which is where I kind of got signed out of. Same thing. I was a 16-year-old on the under 18 team, where I was the youngest one on the team as well there, and played out of my shoes again. And the only reason I can be so thankful for my performance in career at the under 18s was because I had prepared so many times, where being in the world stage, being in front of these scouts and all those sort of things, it wasn't scary. It was just another day at the office for me. So yeah, it was just I just kept working on it, and you know, it has value when you do also have older coaches and things like that, and role models going, dude, you're good. Like, continue what you're doing. You're just fine. Keep doing it. And that kind of relaxes you a bit. But yeah, I've enjoyed my journey so far of what I've accomplished.
What do you do when it comes to coaches, mentors, sort of bigging you up in a way, being like, you know, we can definitely see progress here, and we can see you making it really far.
Yep.
Has that ever really got to your head a bit, or have you just sort of not forgotten about it, but just try and leave it at the back of your mind and just try and work each day at a time?
I wish I could say for the learning of my career that it did get to my head, and then I had to put my head down again and get to work. But it's kind of just pushed me more and more. I think from a young age, being around guys like Trent Ultron, Ryan Rollins-Smith, how they mentored us in our age group, the whole thing around it was stop making your goals so attainable. You can make them attainable, but not like where it's around the corner. So I actually never really cared what coaches and scouts were saying, because there was always a bigger picture. It wasn't this, give me what I want to hear right now. It's kind of the, yeah, I appreciate you saying I'm good, but I'm not trying to be good. I'm trying to be the next Hall of Fame. I'm trying to be the next Aussie to do this. And it's so funny. I remember having a goal for when I was 16, or a couple of years before that, of, you know, hearing these guys signing, and I'm like, I'm not settling. I want to have a good, solid structure and a good, solid amount to support me going into professional career. And that wasn't just going to come easy. So I really had to push for it, but it was so hard where I didn't even attain what I wanted to get. But I think that put me in a good position to learn, you know. Goals shouldn't be attainable, I think. They should be so hard where it's pushing you, but you know you can put the work in to get there. And so and now you see all these different paths. For all these young kids, it's not that we're showing them you got to be a superstar at 12 and sign at 16 to go over there. Because we have so many guys going to colleges as well. There are so many names that no one even knows about in the baseball world of Australians going to colleges. And then you get things like Bazana happening. We've got other guys like Brent Iredale.
Mm-hmm. That was who I was going to mention next.
Yeah. Just doing things that everyone's like, oh, he was a good player. Wouldn't expect that though. But it's like, when he went over and he started doing well at junior college, and I remember like speaking to some of the other guys going, he's a dog. He's been a dog. He should have been in our under 15s. He should have been in this team and that team. He was always good. He was a quiet guy, but...
Mm-hmm. I went to school with him. He was the quietest thing ever.
Quietest guy.
But he's very quiet but very confident.
Yeah.
He doesn't boast because he knows he's good.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you he knows he's good.
He knows it. You have to have that.
But it's not, he's not in your face. He's like, I'm the best one here.
Yeah.
But you could sort of tell it in the way that he just walked around.
Yeah.
He was super confident, but he also had the skill in that sort of arena to back it up every single time.
Every single time. And
he's obviously gone over to junior college and has broken basically every record they've got.
Yeah.
And now he's with Arkansas. And
powerhouse.
And like he is one of the best D1 colleges in the States over there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, good on him. Like he really deserves everything he gets over there, because I've seen him. Like you would have seen him at an earlier age,
sure,
playing with him. But I knew him at high school when he was so independent, yet was so much of a team player as well. Yeah. Like he knew his own job that would then help his team out. Like, and I think that's the big thing to take out of you guys that are going over. It's like all the big name ones. Bazana, yourself, Idale's now getting a good name for himself. There's just a level of humbleness between you all. You're not big-headed. You're not boasting it to everyone saying I'm the best in the world. you know you're good and you're doing it very well,
Yep.
but you don't have to rub it in people's faces.
Yep.
You're just doing it at a level where people can admire your work, but then you're not expecting them to just throw all this praise on you and you're just going to live off that for the rest of your life. It's something that I really do admire, because I know a lot of people that are craving that attention, and then when they don't get it, they crumble.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great skill to have, especially at such a young age. Like, you know, you're 21.
I mean, all that. It's just especially in our country, where we're just known to cut down the people at the top. If you got a big head and you got that much confidence and arrogance about you, I'm not saying no to it. It's a tough game to play, because you better show out every single day perfectly. If you don't, if you screw up, you'll have
People on your back,
head straight away. And so, you know, I think that's where, like, that's just really hard. You're going to see it and it's going to happen. And some people go, you know, wow, he really did make a name for himself and he really showed out every day. It's just a really hard thing to do. And so that's why, you know, I think who I am and how it all works, I'll take the praise after the accolades, but before it, I'm not going to. I know it in my own head, but I'm not going to show it until I've done it. I already know what I need to do.
My question is, do you think that people that obviously do put a target on themselves by showboating, I guess you could say,
Sure.
actually do have a bigger target on their back? Or do you think it's just all a mind game and just, you know, whatever happens, happens? And
At a young age, juniors and things like that, it's tough for any kid to go through that. They're going to crumble. They're going to crumble eventually, and they'll learn from it. But once I've seen, like, the professional world of sports, whether it's in my sport or other sports, the best of the best, because you can't put a absolute pin right on it and say, that's the way you're going to become the best in the world. I don't personally believe it. I think every single person who is the best in the world, you look at any personality, it all works, but they know themselves better than anyone. They know their process, they know what their plan of attack is, and they can stick consistent to it. Consistency, in my point, is the name of the game. Whether you're going to tell everyone that you're the best every single day, or you're not going to say anything and show them by your actions, you need to stay consistent with it. And when things shake that up a little bit, you can't let it affect you. You've got to just go, that's just who I am. That's what I've got to expect with who I am. And that's how it's going to be. I can't say that you look at guys, especially from the Spanish background in baseball, and say that they're just in their own corner putting the hard work down. They love the entertainment. They want to be the face of the game. And so their emotions might go up and down and things like that, but that's how they thrive. Other guys thrive in other ways. You look at the Japanese culture, it's just completely different in terms of how they approach their work days and how they present themselves. But you can't say that Japan is just heights above America and Dominican Republic and things like that. They all have their best players. They just all do it differently, but they know themselves and what they need to do in order for it to work.
I guess knowing that with your accolades that you've already achieved at such a young age, I sort of put to you the question, do you regularly, or have you ever sort of looked back on what you have achieved already instead of just looking forward and obviously wanting to get into the MLB or whatever your next big goal is? Do you ever actually just take time and reflect on, you know, the 15 odd accolades that you've achieved so far? Because I think as people, whether it's sportsmen or just people doing careers of any sort, they're so invested in just going up and up and up that they don't really look back and be like, oh shit, I've come from all the way down there to where I am now, like that is an incredible milestone in itself.
Yep.
And if anything, if that was me, that'd drive me more to want to continue on to what I want to do further on. But do you ever sit down and actually look at the past and think, shit, I've done some stuff?
No?
No?
I don't think I have. I think I've gone through periods, especially last year in my career, where I had a few rough years of pro ball. Being young, you're trying to still figure things out and things like that. Rough couple years, and then last year went into spring training with an injury, which I didn't know what it was. It ended up being a sports hernia. I needed surgery on it. It wasn't very good. That year was so difficult. I felt like I was ready to quit the game. Not actually willing to quit the game, but I was just fighting demons every day of like, am I just going to keep getting hurt? Trying to like find answers, and things just wouldn't work out. It just seemed impossible. Those times then is probably the first time that I ever worked with a true like mental coach. And that changed my whole perspective on everything. Now, I don't sit down and realize what I've done with my career, but there are parts to it where it's remembering what the feeling of success felt like. A lot of athletes, you're wrong if you say you don't want to win. Figuring out whatever your win is, knowing what that is, that feeling is just unbeatable. And so that's probably the only thing that I really truly look over and go, no, success feels way too good for me to give up. No matter what my next year, my next few years look like right now, there is no shot ever that anything is going to stop me from trying to make it to the top, because I just know the feeling is going to be too good. And that's what I'm living for right now. The accolades are really good. And I'm not saying that I don't think they're good, but I think it's a constant drive for more. I would be lying to you if I said I'm never satisfied. Like, it's just, I'm happy, but I'm not happy with where I'm at. I just want so much more. So I don't think I truly have ever sat down and thought about it, really.
Speaking on mentally, I sort of want to bring back to that injury you had. How long were you out for that?
I was out for probably, well, let's put it this way. I was out for the whole season last year. I came back earlier than expected. Just like, that's one thing as well. Like, so I had the injury and expected, I think, was 3 months. I came back in 2.5 months or around 2 months. And I was just like, before that, I was so on, for at least a bit of a month, was so perfect on diet, so perfect on this, so perfect on that. It will kill you mentally. If that's not who you are, it'll kill you mentally to try and be absolutely perfect on everything. Now, I'm not saying I then fell off the wagon, but I had to bargain with myself and realize what was so important. You know, things like sleep, things like making sure I take care of my body during the workday and things like that, over than absolutely having no sugar during that time. So I was out for because I came back for that after 2 months, played 2 games, and it flared up straight away, was then out for the rest of the season because they just didn't want to risk anything after that. I would say probably around 4 to 5 months.
And I think, you see injuries in all sports, whether that's rugby league, soccer, baseball, whatever it is. And, fans who haven't been involved in it or haven't experienced it just think, oh, it's an injury. Yep. 4 weeks to heal, they'll be fine. But let's say it's a 4-week injury. In that 4 weeks, 4 weeks of that whole thing is all mental.
Yeah.
And especially with a prolonged injury, it's even worse.
Yep.
And I think that's why sports psychology is so important, because obviously you play at your best when your mind is fit. And it's something that I think a lot of people undermine how difficult it is to, I guess, go through an injury or an illness or whatever it is and try and come back the other side of that twice as good as you were before.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of that is the mental game.
You won't. And I've seen players injured on injured. I've seen them make it to the top without having a strong mental game. And to me, it blows me how they are able to do it. But that is almost, and I've spoken about it for years now, it is the sixth tool, especially in baseball, to be able to make it, because I don't care what anyone says, any single player in professional baseball in the minor leagues is fit to play in the big leagues. They've got tools enough that can play in the big leagues. But it is the mental tool, which is so hard to figure out because it's not white and black. Changes for everyone, change for every different situation, and there's so many different aspects that you can look into it, but it is so important. If you have no clue on... It's as simple as you hit a ball in the ground to shortstop, and there's so many different ways to look at it. And I think a lot of players get into so much trouble because they just dive deep into it. You know, their shoulder flies out of things like that when it's like, no, you just weren't on time to the pitch. And it's being able to simplify things like that. They're aware of themselves, what they need to do. They're aware of their process, their plans, everything like that, where it's setbacks shouldn't be setbacks. When you are mentally strong and you understand it mentally, as tough as things get, you'll be able to get through it. And obviously it is so hard, and that's what was so hard for me, was because I was sitting in my bed doing an hour of rehab a day when I saw my other teammates that I was with last year, or my other friends, playing every day, producing numbers, learning, getting better. And it was just so hard to see myself being there right then, to being able to catch up to them and things like that. You think you have to do extra work once everything's over because you're so far behind them. But if you're aware of your path, then you'll be able to just let it go and trust what you need to do. They think, I spoke to one of my hitting coaches the other week about it. You've heard, and you probably heard as well, when you're hitting the best, you're not thinking at the plate. The best hitters in the world, they don't think. This person doesn't think because they're just so relaxed and things like that. They think. Everyone thinks. But it's how you're able to then simplify your thoughts, because that's what you need to do. Whatever it might be, it changes for everyone. But everyone thinks, and I think it's impossible to tell someone to not think. It's impossible.
Too many people that I played with,
Yep.
their parents were just so on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's just like my parents, my whole family, but especially my dad, he was never like that. He'd obviously, like, he was never into baseball.
Yep.
You know, he was from England.
Yep.
It's all football for him.
Sure.
But I think it was just the fact that especially towards the beginning, obviously I'd only just started out and I was 5 years late compared to everyone else. Like, I was starting when I was 11. Everyone else was starting when they were 5 or 6.
Yeah, and you somehow were just 10 times bigger than every kid you had as well, though. That was
Well,
ridiculous.
but that was also a real big advantage to me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the game, but mentally.
Yeah.
It's like I have a physical presence,
Yeah.
either whether it's in the box or pitching or whatever it is. And I thought that I had that little mental edge over
Sure.
my opponents because they're so fucking
Yeah,
small.
exactly.
And I think that's where when I actually started to realize that I had that physical size difference, that's when I think the mentality sort of changed of negativity, don't want to get hit,
Yep.
you know, scared of it, to welcome it. Because my whole thing all my life is I just don't want to get hurt, whether that's injuries, whether that's getting hit by the ball, all that sort of stuff. because who wants to get hurt? It's not enjoyable by any means.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it is a dangerous game to play.
Well, anyway, we were on that tangent for quite a bit, but it was a good tangent to go on.
Definitely necessary.
I do want to sort of speak about your journey moving forward.
Sure.
Are you a big person on manifestation? Do you believe in things like the law of attraction, or is it just work hard enough, you'll get it? Or
No.
do you believe there is some sort of thing that if you do the right things, it'll sort of line up and you'll...
Yeah. I think it goes hand in hand. At least that's the way I look at it. I mean, to me, what is a goal without manifestation and the law of attraction? But I think a lot of people talk about that by just thinking about it. I think a goal is all of it. Once you have your goal, once you have your vision of your path and where you want to go, there's steps along the way. There's physical steps, there's mental preparation, there's thinking about it, talking about it, whether it's between yourself, with others, etc., things like that. That is where I see manifestation coming in. It's not about thinking about it every day. It's about thinking about who to talk to about it, what plan's going to go into it, and then actually getting it done. So yeah, I do believe in all that. Now, me personally, for like what's next, obviously, is the Premier 12 tournament that's about to take place in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to say, I am so excited to be on that team. This is my first professional, like the men's Australian team. This is going to be a really cool one to play in, especially because it's been a while since I played with Bizana. So for me to debut with him, that will be pretty cool. So I got that, obviously, in terms of that's an actual tournament that I've got.
Yep.
My personal goal, I know I've got the tools. Mentally, I've worked so hard to get the mental skills as well. It's the fight to find consistency. I've spoken with my hitting coaches and whoever it may be, friends, family. It's finding a way to know who I am well enough to be consistent with that day to day. Anyone's tools are going to play if they know how to apply them. But the name of the game, like I said before, to make the big leagues is being consistent with your game. And so I've played in a few years with the professional organization trying to play their game, trying to play how they perceive a good player is. And it's not far off. It's not like it's light day and night difference of what a big leaguer is. But is it exactly who I need to be? No, it's not. And I've got to find my process to be consistent with. It's no matter what happened yesterday. It's obviously easier said than done, but no matter what happened yesterday, waking up the next day and just not changing a single thing in my day because I know that that's my path and that's what I need to do for the day. It's going 0 for 5 and knowing the next day I got to think the exact same thing I did yesterday because that's my process. It's being able to be consistent with that without letting results, positive or negative, having an impact on my process. That's what's for me.
You are so methodical. You do everything.
Yep.
You know, it's not OCD or anything, but it is just you've got a process and you stick by that, and it works. So why change it?
Yeah, and that, I mean, like you just said with the pregame stuff as well, even whether it's thinking, even whether it's doing the same stretches and repetitions you do before a game, that to me in itself is the only way someone's truly going to find confidence. If you know something works and you don't change it, you're going to go into game knowing you're fine. But all of a sudden you're changing it. Say you don't stretch your arm for a day. I'm not saying that. That's the biggest thing. But don't stretch your arm for a day, go into a game, feel a little pain in your elbow, and all of a sudden you can't think properly during the whole game because you can feel it and you know that you didn't do your stretches before the game. That's the only way to me personally that you're going to be able to go a game every day and just know, yeah, I'm prepared for today. And like I said before, it's like, yes, and I threw you off a little bit. Yes, the goal is to make the majors. Yes, the goal is to do more than just the majors. It's there to be there for 10 years and things like that. There are deeper goals that I haven't mentioned and I won't mention. Like, these things I keep behind the curtain. And like I said, I will get the success and I will get the appreciation for that when it happens. But I'm not going to talk about it until it happens. I know if I put my head down that it'll happen.
And there's sort of talking about consistency and whether that's playing sport or whether it's a weight loss journey even.
Sure.
There's this quote that I love, and I listened to a podcast a couple months ago when he said it, and I've basically, well, it's actually my lock screen. It's the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding.
Yep.
And that
So true.
that is, for me, the greatest quote ever, because it's like you're wanting to obtain all this glory,
Yep.
but then you're not willing to put the work in.
Yep. So important. And it's put on the record. I hate the gym. Like, professional athlete, I hate the gym. I dread going to the gym every day. I just don't like it. I don't find any, used to have it there. There's no love for it anymore. But I think, and it is a common thing, and it's not a bad thing. I think I was lucky enough to realize this a few years ago. I think a lot of people get two things. I think a lot of people in general in life, they have a goal and they see how far away it is and they don't get started. You just need to get started, no matter where it is. If it's embarrassing, it doesn't work, you just need to get started with whatever you're thinking. The other thing is, I don't think enough people sit down with themselves, not talking with anyone else, by themselves. I guarantee you, when people sit down by themselves and they think, what do I need to do? Or what are the negatives right now in my life? They will be able to identify it. But they just brush that off for so long and they don't even think about it. Because I guarantee you, myself included, it's like, if I sit there and go, what do I truly need to do that's going to help me this year? I'll be able to think of the answers. And whatever the answer is, it's going to be the thing that's going to be what I need to do, because it's just going to be in my mind. But people just don't get to that point.
Finding a balance, I think, is so important, because you can't just live your life every day, just so tunnel visioned into this one thing that you don't just relax for a bit.
Yeah. And it's a tough skill to have. Because like, even myself, thinking of having a family right now, I just know I wouldn't be a good father this day right now, because I'm 100% invested in baseball, and I find it very tough to split up conversations at home, things like that aren't baseball. And I think it's such an important thing for a lot of people to have. And you'll have the rare few that you could possibly say, and I don't know them personally, but things like people like Trevor Bauer, things like that, are just so on baseball 24/7, and that's what works for them. But there's a toll that it takes, whether it's your family, whether it's relationship with other people, whatever that might be, that'll take a toll if you're not able to have the balance or the flip of the switch at the end of the day, which I'm still trying to learn. It's a hard thing. Cool.
We sort of touched on it before, but I do want to sort of bring attention to, I guess, the increasing presence of Australian talent with yourself, with people we've mentioned previously, like Brent Iredale and Travis Bazana and Clayton Campbell, and however many others. There's hundreds of them, I'm sure, but I can't name them all. I sort of just want to get your take on where you think us as a country, like, what is our trajectory moving forward for us, knowing that we've got, recently the first overall draft pick. That in itself is going to be a massive thing for Australian baseball in itself. if anything, purely for the exposure.
Sure.
Knowing that he's come from
Yep.
Australia, right? I sort of just want to get your take on what you think the repercussions of so many people getting names over in the States will do for Australia in general. Well, I guess, and also the perception of Australian baseball to blokes like the Americans, to the Japanese, to all that sort of stuff.
In terms of getting a name for our country, I think Bazan has helped us out a lot with what he's just done. And obviously we got guys like Hendricks that are in the big leagues, plus a few others. Our name for our country is going to be more prominent. In terms of what we're able to achieve, I think it is left in our hands right now. Our country is known, for as long as I know, especially in baseball, of like we're a fighting country. We know we don't have the names and the talent that other countries do, but we know who we are and we're going to be able to put our best foot forward. Now that we've got that built into our personality, as well as we've also got the talent to compete against those other countries, truly like a 1-1 that you just cannot overlook. I think we're in a good pathway. Naturally, I think it just, okay. I've spoken to Pizzana about this quite a few times. We speak about this every off-season when he comes home and things like that. We have a love for this game. We have a love for our country. And it's been there before with all the other guys older than us. But like we're not just going to ignore we need to grow this game in Australia. Part of our goals is to be a number 1 team in the world. Not just when a tournament comes around, be back with your mates, play around and do what you can. This is obviously my first time in the men's team, but the atmosphere I'm getting from players, from the coaches and things like that is we're here to win. It was there when we were in juniors, not so, like it was there, but I think it's stronger now. And I think once we all start to have our careers, we start to give back to these younger kids and things like that. Some of us will split up from not playing the game. Some will be in the game, and then there'll be others that come back to Australia and coach the younger kids. It's just always how it goes. Those coaches that come back to coach the younger kids in Australia, I think will be around so much of, this country is here to win, that it'll be in such a good path anyway for our younger teams as well. Mm. And it'll just keep on, it'll be a whole rotation that just keeps better and better for players in our country and a name we make for ourselves. So I think we're in a great position right now. I think a lot of it is credit to what Travi's done. And I think is now that we've just shown everyone, even in our country, okay, it's possible. He's just gone 1-1. It's possible. Not saying it's going to happen in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time. But you'll get a lot more kids going, I don't care I'm going to college, or I don't care I'm signing. We've shown them every path possible. Here's every single path possible. Go do what's best for you and figure it out. Mm. And I think that's what he's just done for us. I signed, Clayton signed, Burnsy signed. We have all these guys signing and everyone thinking, is that the only way? Now you get guys, Travi College, Jimmy College, Brent Iredale College. These guys are about to do something special as well. So now that we have all these pathways available, I think it's just opened up a lot of dreams in Australia realizing, all right, let's get it done. We can do it.
Position where you can sort of be the trailblazers and be like, well, this is where we're from and we're coming to take over type thing.
Yeah. And that's what we want to do. I think it is going to be pretty hard for us to get the light that we want in news and media and things like that. it's a biased world. They've got to find what everyone finds entertaining. How that's going to be done, I don't know, but I think we're starting to recognize things like that for us to then implement, to then realize, hey, let's make it a thing where everyone back here knows about it.
I sort of want to change topics a little bit, just purely because we're running out of time.
That's fine.
But I wanted to bring up something more on a personal note that had happened a few years ago. You're a part of the Swish platform?
Yes.
Yes. And I had, it was for Father's Day, and I was going through it because I just wanted to see, at the time my dad was a massive Eels fan, so I got a few Eels players to do it, and I'm like, I'll just go through the whole thing and see who it is, and then your name popped up.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so I was like, can't for the life of me remember the message I put, but it was basically just a Father's Day thing, and I'll play the audio to it there.
Hey Terry, it's Solo here with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Just want to say happy Father's Day. I've always loved seeing you out there on the baseball field supporting everyone, and you've done so much for Matt and everyone around baseball as well. You're always a common face for everyone to see, and today's your day, so we want to say happy Father's Day to you, and I hope you get spoiled. I know it's tough in lockdown right now, so you can't enjoy everything, but make the most of it with your fam, because everyone loves you, and we all love you so much. Have a good day.
When I showed it to my grandfather, he was like, "Oh, this is literally greater than fucking anything." He loved it, so thank you for that.
No, that's it goes over my head too. I never think I have that much influence, and I mean that's part of why I really do want to make an influence on everyone. But to hear things like that are really special, and so I do appreciate you telling me that, because it makes it feel like everything, although it's for myself, it has a greater reason behind it, and it impacts a lot of people. So no, it is really cool, and it is touching to hear.
Well, not that I know of. You hadn't really published that you were a part of it?
No, because I rarely get them. I had one the other week, and Swish had to DM me saying, "Hey mate, you've had one waiting for you for 7 days. Can you get onto it?" Going, "Oh shit, all right, I better get onto it," because it doesn't happen very often.
How do you get them? Is it
There's
an email?
app,
Or?
There's an app,
Oh,
and
right.
then it says you got one request. And so I haven't done many in my time, but when I get them, it makes my day, because I'm like, there's no way this is actually happening. But it's awesome. It's something that is so easy for me to take a little bit of time out of my day that I know is going to impact someone. And they don't happen all the time, but when I have gotten them, it's been really cool to do.
When he played it, I had to send it to him because he's like, I'm showing everyone this. And so he ended up showing 15, 20 people. And then I got messages from him saying, "Do you reckon you could get him to do a couple more?" I'm like, well, I probably could, but like...
Oh, that's awesome.
But one more thing before we head off, because we are significantly late. I think you sort of alluded to it a bit earlier, but I just want to straight down the barrel ask you, what's the best piece of advice you would give to your younger self right now?
That really is tough. I think it's such a cliche thing you could say, and I think no matter who hears it, or when anyone ever hears it, they'll understand as they get older. But to just not let anyone else get in the way of your own path. The only thing that's going to stop anyone from making it ever is their own head. And it's gotten in the way of mine. It's gotten in the way of plenty. When people do finally realize that, they feel like the biggest weight is off their shoulder. And it's so much easier said than done. And yeah, I did touch on it slightly before, but go out there and play. Go out there and do whatever. Be okay with, like, fucking it all up. No matter what it is. it's financially, if it's in a sport, if it's a relationship. I think if you go into those things in life without caring what the result is, you might actually fuck it up, but it will be okay. Especially younger guys, kids, even going into their teens or early adulthood. There's this whole life of living right now which I feel like everyone loves to play safe. There's nothing wrong with playing safe, but if you truly want to go out there and do something, a lot of people get in their own way. They say, no, can't be done for this reason or that reason. Who cares? Go stuff up. Go lose it all. Go lose absolutely everything and start again.
Well, we learn off errors.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. It's like, I've just seen so many people just play the safe game. Even if they're playing a risky game, but the safest version of that risky game. It's like, and I can even learn that for myself for things that I'll continue to do, but it's like, do you seriously want to live your life with regrets? It's like, just go for it, stuff up, lose everything, and start again. And I think a lot of young kids, they do it. We all do it at the youngest age. We all go play, and then eventually, whether it's because the influence of school, whatever's cool, whatever's this, everyone kind of loses that factor a little bit. But if we all just go out and play the game of life as if we're kids and just don't actually have any clue about anything, I think there's a big truth behind ignorance is bliss. And that's what I think, yeah.
Want to thank you for coming on today. It was, I think, a very insightful chat on not only your own personal development, but as baseball as a whole.
Sure.
And you're obviously very intellectual. You're not some fucking dumbass on the side of the street. So it was very easy for me to be. You were actually the first person I ever contacted about being on it.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Everyone, that is what we have time for. Want to have a shout out to Solomon Maguire for coming out. I really do appreciate him coming on, taking the time out of his day to come. And I'll leave his social media in the description for you all. And I'll let us go there. And yeah, I'll speak to you in the next one.